Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome back to Adventure Capital, where we not only discuss the entrepreneurial journeys and adventures with founders who have raised capital on WeFunder, but also the different resource providers and mentors helping founders along the way. Huzzah! Today we have Alexis Gallivan of TikTok, which I do not need to explain. We should all know their greatness at this point. WeFunder gang, take it away.
So Alexis, great to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here, Jonny.
Maybe you could start by just giving us an overview of your personal backgrounds. Who is Alexis? How did you come to be working at TikTok?
Who is Alexis? That's the question I ask myself every day. I've had a kind of a long and winding, I guess, path to where I am today. I'll try to be real quick with it. Actually started off in international development. I was out there ready to kind of change the world, as a lot of young people are. But over time, just started feeling really, just disheartened, by the inefficiencies and kind of the limitations of the work at that time. And started to be really curious actually about the private sector and what that kind of profit-driven motive and mentality could do in terms of like creating just a more vibrant, prosperous world for us all. And that essentially led me to the launch of an ice cream business, of course. I mean, that's a logical leap, right? From working in sub-Saharan Africa to opening up an ice cream shop in New York City. But that's the path I took. It's called Blue Marble Ice Cream. And the idea was to create this company that was rooted in these really kind of deep, heartfelt principles. And creating a business that had a positive impact on the world around us, but that was profitable, that was, scalable. So founded that business with my dear friend, Jenny Dundas in New York City in 2007, in Brooklyn, to be specific. Super proud to say we're still going strong today, which is no small feat. Running a food business in New York City, one of the most competitive markets in the world, is not easy. We've had to pivot a lot, grow a lot, make a lot of mistakes, but we are still standing.
Are you still involved? Are you on the board or?
Yeah, I'm still involved. So I'm still an owner. I've kind of taken a step outside of the operations and left kind of my business partner at the helm of things, but she's doing a phenomenal job. So, but still very much involved in all the key decision makings and, creative processes and that kind of stuff. So it's, I kind of have the best of both worlds these days. But anyway, so, running the business, growing the business really opened my eyes to, I guess, number one, how incredibly hard and exhausting running a business is, how terrifying it can be, but also, of course, how fun and fulfilling it can be. And then also it made me learn just how utterly vital startups and small businesses are to the vibrancy and the well-being of our society. So that really kind of inspired me and set me on this new path in a way. And really have kind of devoted my career ever since to doing all I can to support other founders and just the incredible impact that they're making on our communities every single day. So, sorry, go ahead.
So how is that? How have you done that? Where have you done that?
Yeah, well, I've taught about business at the graduate level. I've consulted for other small businesses. I've even worked with women in Rwanda and Haiti, of all places, to help them build businesses of their own. And fast forward, I'm now at TikTok, where I lead our small business engagement work, which is quite literally my dream job. Ultimately, I get to just work with small businesses every single day and help them launch grow on what I think, in my totally unbiased opinion, is the world's most exciting, kind of joyful, powerful platform ever built. Other than WeFunder, of course. That's, we're
we're working on it. And so, that's a beautiful segue. Give us the high level overview on TikTok. Probably, most listeners are very familiar, probably TikTok users themselves, but maybe for those that aren't, what's the 101 on TikTok?
Yeah, well, it's still a kind of emerging platform. So I would imagine that there are some folks out there who aren't yet on the platform. I'm sure they've heard of it, but so quick kind of like TikTok 101. I guess in the most technical terms, TikTok is a short form video platform that delivers entertaining, educational, inspirational content to our billion plus users around the world. But once you download the app and actually immerse yourself in what's called the For You page, you're going to discover that we are so much more than that. Today, TikTok is it's an undeniable cultural force. It's essentially a nonstop stream of ingenuity and artistry and humanity. And it's really where the world today is going to find some creativity and joy and to offer it in return. And I don't know about you, Jonny, but I think we could all use a little more joy these days. It's been a rough time, right? So yeah, to say the least. So, but ultimately, TikTok is just an extraordinary place. Whether you're into music or investing or cooking or hiking or even, I don't know, ASMR, there's so much incredible content waiting for you on the platform. And there's also an engaged community of others who are going to share your interests and want to kind of engage with you. So as a result of all of this, TikTok is insanely popular. We hit the billion active user mark much more quickly than some of our peers out there. And in fact, in a recent study, I just learned that over a third of TikTokers are saying that they're now spending less time watching TV and other streaming devices since getting on TikTok. And over 80% are saying that they're going to spend as much time or more on TikTok moving forward. So all those qualities make it a uniquely, supremely powerful environment for businesses just looking to connect with new enthusiastic audiences.
Yeah. So what are you seeing in terms of entrepreneurs, especially kind of small businesses and startups kind of using TikTok as a, marketing advertising platform?
Yeah, it's been fascinating to watch. I think I would say probably most people, especially those who aren't as familiar with TikTok, might associate our platform with like the crazy dance trends that are emerging every single day. And maybe they think it's just for Gen Z. And that may be where we kind of got started, but we have evolved so much as a platform, as a community since those early days. And so now we're seeing from the user side, everyone from the Gen Z all the way to like your grandma and grandpa who are using TikTok to kind of, stay connected with the world and learn new things and be entertained. And the businesses are kind of following suit. So obviously we've got some big brands on there who do these big flashy campaigns, but we also have a ton of like mom and pops and startups who are kind of recognizing kind of the unique power of the platform and are getting on in droves every single day. And I think the critical thing to say here is to really articulate the key differences between TikTok and some of the other digital marketing platforms out there, because sometimes we get lumped into like the social media giants, and we're actually not a social media platform. We are an entertainment platform that functions an entirely different way. So to be more specific, for the most part on these other platforms, small businesses, founders, startups, they have to they get up on these platforms, they have to establish their businesses, and they have to work so hard to like cut through all the noise and create content that kind of competes with the corporate Joneses, so to speak, and just do what they can to try to kind of like show up and be seen and be heard. And on TikTok, they're having really the opposite experience, because first of all, real and relatable is the name of the game on TikTok. The more real and relatable you are, the more the TikTok audience is going to embrace and love you. And honestly, that's not something that like big corporate budgets can necessarily buy. So the founders have a real leg up here because they're all about authenticity, right? I would imagine that for the most of your listeners out there and the WeFunder kind of founders, they're building their business on a passion or a unique talent or skill that they want to share with the world. And TikTok is ready for it. It's the perfect place to share that. The TikTok community wants that vision, the grit, the heart, the soul, the messiness, the hope. That is what really people love on TikTok. And that's what they're going to reward with their views and their engagement.
And so is it like startups and small businesses that they're creating kind of their company accounts, and then what kind of content are they posting? What kind of cadence? I'm curious also about the breakdown between kind of just doing that organically versus putting money behind it.
Yeah, great questions. So first of all, I'd say that this is kind of maybe a good answer and maybe a stressful answer for some of the audience members out there. There's no one like magic formula. Like, hey, if you get on TikTok and you do X, you're going to succeed. it's really just about showcasing what it is that makes you so special, what it is that makes your business so meaningful and interesting, and relatable to people and their lives.
Just on that note, Alexis, I would imagine that it may be the case that certain types of entrepreneur or company would actually do a lot better on TikTok. By which I mean, I feel like, kind of any business like can, kind of promote themselves on Facebook. Any business can kind of, promote themselves on Instagram. Obviously, you can be better or worse at kind of, photos and Instagram stories, etc. I would imagine that like kind of, creating a TikTok video that's gonna be really kind of interesting and engaging and, quotes, go viral, unquotes, is quite maybe a smaller percentage of founders or entrepreneur or kind of businesses slash, their marketing creative teams would be amazing at doing that. Is that fair, do you think? Or you think, no, actually anyone can do this just as anyone can put together a decent looking Facebook page?
Well, I think to really answer that question, first of all, I would want to kind of explain how TikTok works and the power of discovery on TikTok. Mm-hmm. On these other platforms, you put your content out there, you do your best, you make it nice and glossy and aspirational and beautiful, and you put it out there, and you got to chase down followers and hope that they're going to find you and like you and engage with you and all that kind of stuff. But TikTok basically works in the opposite direction. So businesses will put their content up there, and then our magic algorithm kind of figures it out and delivers it directly to the people that we know want to see it. So essentially what that means is much bigger, faster exposure for businesses with a whole lot less effort, because people are going to see your content, whether they're already following you or whether they have any clue about who you are or not, thanks to that algorithm. And essentially, it also means a whole lot more relevance for the audience members and the consumers out there, because they're seeing content that is relevant to their interests, to their needs, to their purchasing habits, all of that kind of good stuff. So hopefully that kind of expedites the process from discovery to conversion or website, visits or app downloads, whatever it is that you're trying to drive them to do. And I'll really tell you that I've been searching for some kind of pattern, some kind of clue as to what really makes things go viral, what makes things take off. Is there a certain kind of element or storytelling format that really works above all others? And there just isn't one. There are a number of kind of storytelling formats that businesses have used, brand introductions and product features and how to.
You mentioned authenticity. I wonder if that's a kind of relevant word here in terms of, the quotes formula.
Yes, 100%. That was my next point, is like the one undercurrent, the one common thread throughout all of this is that people will just show up in a super, super just real way. I think we're all so sick of, like, frankly, the Instagram version of the world. It doesn't exist, especially not today. We want to feel connected. We want to feel like we belong. We want to feel like, the life that we're living is meaningful and connected to others. And TikTok offers that in spades. So yes, I think the one common denominator in the content that does well is that it's just really real. I'll give you a great example. One of my favorite small business creators is a woman named Anya White. She owns a candle company in Connecticut. And one of her most popular TikToks is a recording of her face. And she was trying to figure out this special new effect, and she just could not get it, but it was recording while she was trying to figure it out. And you could see the look of, like her eyebrows raised, her confusion, like her furrowed brows, she's like, what the heck is going on? And then she realized, oh, I was just recording that whole thing and it's hilarious. She posted it and people totally got it. They understood what was happening there. They'd probably been in her shoes trying to figure out these new filters and trends and features on the platform or on the app. And people absolutely loved it. They ate it up. She got so many comments, so much love. And that's just kind of an indication of Just put yourself out there. It's just show us your messy, stock room. Introduce us to your dogs, your team members. Let us feel like we're part of your story. That's what resonates. That's what works well. And it works well for all different kinds of businesses. There's some of my favorite businesses who've done really well on TikTok it's like a woodworker in Maine. There's an amazing guy who's a carpet repair guy in California. He's totally blown up. There's this older woman who runs a tea shop in Pennsylvania. There's a mortgage broker. His handle is literally "mortgages are boring," and he has become like a TikTok sensation, giving people advice on how to navigate the whole mortgage world. So this is kind of a long-winded way of saying that there is no one formula, as I mentioned, but just show us who you are. Show us what makes you special. Give us a real picture of your life, of your business, of your challenges, of your hopes, and people are going to respond.
That's awesome. Our companies kind of what's the breakdown between like organic and paid? Like how do companies go about advertising or thinking about putting money behind the content they're putting out there?
Yeah. So, just like there's no one formula for the content, there's no one right path necessarily for all businesses. Both paid and organic are great options. But I'd say it's not an either and or. It's really kind of evolving into the right strategy based on your goals, budget, kind of, trajectory as a business. Generally, I would advise most folks who are new to TikTok to start with organic. It's a totally free, no risk way to just put yourself out there, tell your story in this new way to this new audience, and hopefully have a ton of fun in the process. And so to get started with there, I'd really recommend registering for a business account, because with a business account, you get access to all sorts of great branding, analytics, creative tools, all sorts of great kind of bells and whistles to help you really kind of build your presence in the platform. And then from there, you play around with different kinds of content. So I mentioned before, there's brand introductions, product features, how-tos, befores and afters, lots of different storytelling formats that you can try out. And essentially what that lets you do is do kind of like a test and learn strategy. Put content out there, look at the analytics, see who is watching that, who's engaging, read the comments. The comments are a gold mine for not only content ideas, but also product ideas, new features, new colors, new options, new dimensions to different services. People are highly, highly engaged on TikTok. So definitely check out the comments for inspiration there. And then essentially what you can do is, once you have that track record of content, you can look back, see what worked, what maybe didn't work so well, and then play around with a paid strategy from there. Find something that worked well. We have an awesome tool, for example, called Promote. For as little as $5 a day, you can promote your organic content. So if you have a video that worked really well, put $10 behind it, target your audience, put it out there, see what happens. And then from there, you can get even more sophisticated to really accelerate your results. We've got a really wide variety of advertising solutions to meet every budget and goal. So whether you're looking to increase your followers or obviously, drive conversions, website visits, app downloads, you name it, we've got an ad solution for that objective. So I'd say start organic, play around with it, get a feel for the platform, build that muscle, learn from it, and then grow from there with a paid campaign.
One question I'm kind of curious about. I mean, you were a small business owner with Blue Marble, which the website looks just amazing, by the way. The branding is phenomenal. So how busy entrepreneurs are, and see people applying for WeFunder campaigns, and it's like, here's my Facebook, here's my Instagram, here's my Twitter, here's my YouTube, here's my LinkedIn. For a busy founder who might say, do I really have to kind of set up another kind of, you said interestingly, kind of TikTok, you don't see it as a social media platform, but another kind of account. What do you say to that founder who's kind of already swamped and trying to keep a number of different accounts going on the marketing side?
Yeah, first of all, I'd say I feel you. My business also is trying to figure out our own TikTok strategy, and we have these other platforms that are active, and we're trying to kind of work TikTok into the mix. I totally understand it's not easy. And what makes it feel more complicated is that TikTok is quite different from those. You can't just lift and shift content from other platforms onto TikTok and expect it to perform. It just won't happen because we have our own way of expressing ourselves on TikTok. So first of all, I empathize. I completely get it. But unfortunately, or fortunately, the world changes, consumers change, culture changes, and we have to change along with it. If there's nothing else that we've learned from these past 18 months, 2 years, it's that we cannot get too comfortable. We have to constantly be surveying the landscape, understanding what's happening in the market, and how we need to pivot our businesses in order to not just stay alive, but to keep growing. So ultimately, I'd say that you're letting a massive opportunity pass you by if you don't get on TikTok. And now is the time to do it because we are an emerging platform. So there's still time to like get on there, play around with it in a really low risk, no risk way, and then grow with us.
Oftentimes, right, if there's a kind of a platform that's relatively more emerging, I mean, I don't know if you can still call 1 billion active users as emerging, but probably it's like, kind of, relatively, I don't know, whatever, kind of cheaper kind of cost per impression than a much more established or a platform that's been around for a lot longer, like Facebook, let's say. And often in those kind of for those types of platforms, like you do kind of, it's almost like you're getting impressions at a discount.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to make one other point here in that there was a study done recently, and they found that 52% of TikTokers are not on Instagram and 49% aren't on Facebook.
Wow.
So if you do the math, you think, okay, over 1 billion users, and then you think of those percentages and you're like, holy smokes, like think of all of the people that you're just not reaching if you're not on TikTok. The diversity of the TikTok community is growing fast by the day. And I think the evidence of that is the content that you're seeing. What's interesting is that so you may have like teenage kids out there and they're on the platform, but the cool thing about TikTok is that they are having an entirely different experience than you are. Not that you're not, you're still a young, cool guy, Jonny, but you may be seeing stuff on like investment advice, real estate or cryptocurrency or fitness or something, whereas your kids might be seeing dance videos or other kind of, more kind of music related stuff. So it really works so well for such a broad audience. And I think that's, we're seeing a real surge in usage from businesses like law firms, real estate agencies, investment firms, accountants, nutritionists. Now, generally it's an older population that are seeking out those kinds of services. And so it shows just how our audience is maturing. But I think on some of the other platforms, I feel like, the older people sent the young people, flying out the door on Facebook because they're like, ugh, this is not for me anymore. But TikTok is different because every single experience is tailored to each unique user. So the young people will never know that us old boring people are also on the platform because they won't be surfaced the same content as us. So ultimately what that means is that there's truly kind of space and opportunity for every kind of business to succeed. Maybe not so much like a B2B type company, although I don't know, maybe that works too. I think primarily it's a B2C platform. But again, I think it's whether it's, e-com or Main Street product or service, local, national, regardless of what you sell, how and where you sell it, you're probably going to be a good fit for TikTok if you've got an interesting story and you're willing to tell it in a TikTok kind of way.
Awesome. So if there's a founder listening that's curious about, getting started, what's the kind of first steps on how to, it probably seems daunting, right? Like how the hell do I kind of, put my business up on TikTok?
Yes. Well, first of all, like I said, First of all, like I mentioned a minute ago, start with a business account. It's a fantastic, free feature that has all sorts of bells and whistles that will help you really understand, will help you kind of communicate, the value and the interesting aspects of your business, and then really understand how your content is performing. Then once you are ready to actually create content, there are definitely some kind of do's and don'ts, I'd say. I think I mentioned earlier that a really, really important thing to remember is that you cannot lift and shift content from other platforms and just kind of like plop it down onto TikTok. It's not going to work. Imagine you're on vacation, you're on a beach. Jonny, I know you love romance novels. So imagine like you're just really engrossed in this really steamy novel, and you're at this really good part. The pages are flying by. And then all of a sudden you come across this paragraph that's written in like dense, like scientific text kind of language. You'd be like, what the heck? It would totally disrupt the whole vibe, the whole flow of the story. And that's essentially what happens when you put content on TikTok that wasn't made for TikTok. People know it disrupts the whole flow and experience, and they're going to scroll right past that. So you definitely want to create content that is native to TikTok. So what the heck does that mean? Well, first of all, sound. We are 100% a sound on platform. So whether you use music or sound effects or narration, it doesn't matter, but there's got to be sound. Secondly, you're going to want to shoot vertically, not horizontally. That is the standard format for TikTok. Third, definitely play around with some simple effects like text overlays, filters, transitions, other elements that really kind of speak that TikTok, visual language, so to speak. And then I know I've said this like 30 times already, but the last thing is you've got to be yourself. Like just whether that's funny, that's honest, it's shy, whatever it may be the real you, not the overly polished, perfect version of it that you feel like you might have to project on other platforms. So that's advice number one, like show up in a way that's native to TikTok. And then piece of advice number two is to not be impatient, or to be patient. There's certainly stories of businesses out there who went viral, like on one of their first, if not their first video that they posted on TikTok. But that's not the norm. It's not something you could necessarily expect. You need to stick with it. You need to build your TikTok creative muscle, and you need to give the algorithm time to fully figure out what your content's all about and who's most likely going to want to see it. So I'd say try to post at least once a week to get started, but ideally kind of work your way up towards a few times a week, and then ultimately one time a day. Some people do it several times a day. And I realize that probably sounds totally overwhelming right now, but I promise you, once you get the hang of it, it is kind of, it's super fun, and there's new filters and trends emerging on the platform every single day. So there's constant, new inspiration that you can draw from to just, keep telling your story in new and compelling ways.
Dumb question, but how long do you think it would take on average to make a video?
It really depends. One of my favorite stories is this married couple who owns a pet supply company in Montana. And they were not on TikTok, but they're like, oh, well, let's just put ourselves out there and give it a try. He was leaving his office. He literally posted a TikTok from his car. And by the time he drove home, about 45 minutes later, he had several thousand views. That turned into millions. And I think that TikTok yielded about $10,000 in sales. Now, wow. Yeah, that is, again, that's not necessarily guaranteed. That's certainly not the only story I've heard like that. It happens. It definitely happens. But I guess the point I'm making is that, sometimes you pour over your TikToks and you might spend hours in getting the timing just right and adding these special features and doing the transitions. And sometimes that will work. And then sometimes it's a thing that you're just like in your, staff meeting that day, and you just do a quick, silly little thing, and that's going to take off. So it's really hard. I know I'm not giving you a great answer here because there isn't really one. It's more about the substance than about the kind of sophistication. So obviously when you're just getting started, especially if you're kind of newer to technology or to some of these kind of like visual effects, maybe it's going to take you a little bit longer. But listen, I'm old. When I got started, I was like, how the heck do I use this? But it starts to like make sense after a little while. And one great idea that I've heard for businesses is that once they do get the hang of it, sometimes they'll just set aside 3 hours every Tuesdays, whatever, they'll, over the course of the week, they'll kind of write down all of their ideas, and then they'll just knock them all out in one go. And they kind of bank them. So like, okay, so now I've got 5 TikToks that I can just post every single day, but I don't have to feel pressured every single day to create a new TikTok. Like I just concentrate all that creative energy in that one space of time. I produce those TikToks and then I schedule them to go out on different days.
Love it.
Yeah. So, or sometimes an inspirational strike, and you're like, that was perfect. I definitely have to capture that. And then, so you just have kind of like, let it, whatever might work for you best. You just kind of have to keep yourself open to the different ways to approach it.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, like from the WeFunder context, curious about, founders who are raising capital on WeFunder. One of the cool things about regulation crowdfunding, you can promote the investment opportunity, and founders have seen a lot of success over the last few years, promoting on social media platforms. If you were raising capital for, let's say, Blue Marble was raising capital on WeFunder, any advice for founders kind of using TikTok to market their WeFunder campaigns? I mean, it's probably kind of pretty similar to marketing their business kind of, outside of the fundraising piece, but any other kind of thoughts on, using TikTok for raising capital?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fascinating use case and something I'm definitely eager to explore, hopefully with you guys, to see how we can leverage the power and the enthusiasm of our community to get behind these founders in a really meaningful way. And it's like the research is pointing to some really interesting potential there. 74% of TikTokers say that TikTok has actually inspired them to buy something that they saw on the platform. You see all the big retailers out there have these like as seen on TikTok sections on their website or in their stores, because they've recognized the power that or the influence that TikTok has over people's purchasing decisions. So if we can do that, then why can't we influence, how our community members invest their money in other ways? So that's one thing to think about. The other thing is, just starting with some kind of hard numbers here, I also saw recently that something like 92% of TikTok users take an action after seeing a video. So either they like it, they share it, they comment on it, they purchase something. So that is showing you just how engaged this audience is, and gives you an indication of how ripe the opportunity might be to kind of bring your pitch, bring your investment opportunity to the platform. But if I were a founder, I am a founder, but if I'm bringing my business onto TikTok to kind of hopefully mobilize some investment through WeFunder, I'd say the first thing to do is just focus on establishing trust. I wouldn't necessarily go straight to the pitch. I would take some time to just establish my business, give my audience a picture of my journey, my struggles, my hopes, my triumphs, my team, even my dogs. I'd show it all. And then I think once I'd like built that trust and that community, I just would be honest about what I need, where I plan to go, and then ask for their support in getting me there. So I think, again, with all the things I've been saying about authenticity and engagement, I mean, it seems like a really, really ripe platform and audience to kind of bring these kind of investment opportunities to. Awesome.
Last question. One that we ask everyone that comes on the podcast. You're a founder yourself of Blue Marble. Aside from TikTok, one kind of piece of advice for founders on their startup journey.
Let's see. Well, when we were just getting started,
you can't say set up a TikTok account, by the way. That's a given. Yes. A second piece of advice.
that is on the list, but that's not what I'll share here. I'm thinking way back when we got started, and we were hoping to expand into this new retail location, and we were just kind of battling with the landlord, and we just had our heart set on it. We thought it was the perfect location. It was going to be a game changer for our business. And the guy just wouldn't, he wouldn't give, and we just couldn't make it work. And we were totally devastated. And we were working with this kind of friend, kind of consultant at the time. And he was a long time kind of ice cream industry veteran and kind of a gruff dude from Boston. And he said, "Don't worry, much worse things are going to happen."
Yeah.
And at the time I was like, what? Why are you saying that to us?
Yeah.
we're already devastated enough, but with time, I got to see just how important that perspective is and just how much it helps you build, resilience and humor and flexibility and grit and commitment. Like, you're gonna face a whole lot of adversity, but all those books that are out there from successful founders, I mean, they always, the best parts of the stories are always like the challenges, right? Like, oh my gosh, like you're on the edge of the seat, you think everything's going to come tumbling down, but then somehow they pivot and they reemerge and they, prevail. So don't worry, bad things are going to happen, but you're going to get through them. You're going to build that muscle. You're going to persevere because you believe in what you're doing, and others will too. If you put your business out on TikTok and just kind of share it with the world and help get those folks behind you. So that would be
you need to kind of maintain an even keel, because you need that emotional resilience, because it's going to be hard. It's going to be a long journey. And if you get too kind of emotionally wrought about things like not getting that space you wanted, you're going to burn out. I love it.
That's absolutely right. Yeah,
Alexis, it's been great. Thanks so much. It's been really kind of eye-opening for me. And we're starting to see more and more examples of WeFunder founders using TikTok to market their campaigns. So really excited to potentially do more of that with you guys over the coming weeks and months. Thanks so much for taking the time to do this today.
Thank you so much for having me. Loved it.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Adventure Capital. I hope you laughed, took notes, shed a tear, and most importantly, feel ready to go off on your own adventure. And remember, whenever you're ready, WeFunder's here to help. Be sure to like and leave a review, gang.